computer. Here we go. So welcome to Faith and Calm, class number 252. As promised, last week, I said I would just do one last class on Pesach Sheni I did last week. Yes, that was it. So if you didn't hear about Pesach Sheni and this idea of a second chance, do it because Pesach Sheni comes up next Monday. But I wanted to start talking about Lag BaOmer, which I didn't even realize it when I did the task. I said, I titled it something like, here's your, you get a second try, you get a second opportunity to fix things up, which is Pesach Sheni's theme too. So, but in a different way, a different way of doing the improvement of being able to fix things over. So, but yeah, Pesach Sheni is a very big holiday and very, very important in this idea. So Lag BaOmer, what is Lag BaOmer? Well, we know that it's there's two things about Lag BaOmer. It was the day that the students of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying. And the opinion is that, they were dying and they all died. And he lost 22,000 pairs of students between the time of Pesach and Shavuos. And was it all in the first half? Was it all the second half? Or was it just one day off and then they were dying the whole time? So it doesn't sound like a great day for a holiday. But then the other reason for having a holiday, it's the day of the yahrzeit of the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So why is it such a happy day? It is this yahrzeit. And he said he wanted it to celebrate it. He wanted it celebrated like a wedding day. It's my Yom HaAlula. We're going to explain that idea. We're going to connect it with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And we're going to tell a little story about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai because he was a very unusual Tana. He was so great and so lofty that Rabbi Akiva said, it's good enough. Nobody knows who you really are except for me and your creator. That's about it. But you can't expect anybody else to understand your greatness. So he was... Lag BaOmer is considered the day of the giving of the Torah, of Panemius Torah, and it's a wild day if you've ever been in Israel on this day, going to Meron. So here's a little story to just sort of clue you in.
Can you up?
Go. Yep. What's the question?
You said it's the Panemius of giving the Torah. So can you just explain what you're talking about when you said that? What do you mean?
I'm talking in code word, ain't I?
I thought you were supposed to know that already. The way you said it. Okay.
Yeah. So everybody knows that on Shavuos, the Torah was given. But there are two parts of the Torah. The part of the Torah that we really appreciated that we got on Shavuos is the revealed part of the Torah, the laws, the stories, the Chumash, the Tanakh, that part. The concealed part of the Torah, the mystical part of the Torah, was not really, except to very special people, was transmitted teacher to student privately until the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And even then, after that, it was still pretty much private until the Zohar was published, which is his book that encodes his a lot of his teachings. And the Zohar was not revealed until the 1300s. Was found in a cave, and it was published for the first time many years after that. So the Panemius Torah, the inner part of Torah, is really the soul of the Torah, and that's what we're celebrating. But here we're going to try and understand a little bit of what that means and why that's so special now, and why that was revealed in our time, and why that's very much connected with Mashiach and this new Torah that we're going to receive, where we're going to be able to appreciate more Torah, not as it is just as a practical way of life, but actually what is the guide, how does it relate to all of creation? So Panemius Torah, the inner part of the Torah, the mystical part of the Torah, the esoteric part of the Torah, that which really makes Torah something that's that deals with every piece of our life and every part of who we are, and every aspect of our day-to-day struggles and so forth. That which really gives life and energy to everything that we do. That's the Panemius Torah. So let me try to make that a little more clear.
It sounds like it was Torah Shabbal Peh when you said it was passed down and passed down.
Well,
But then you said,
right. So, but it's yes, it's more than that. It's really the secrets of Torah. It's the mystical part of the Torah. The oral part of Torah was passed down, but it was public. You could go to a class, everybody knew about it, everybody was taught it. You couldn't put on tefillin if you didn't work following the oral Torah. It just wasn't written down, the oral Torah.
right.
The Panemius of Torah, this inner part of Torah, was not given over only to very select students. Like a few in each generation were allowed to know that until the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And even after that, it was only very few people until the Arizal in the 1500s said it's a mitzvah for everybody to start learning this. So, and that's all connected with the Enlightenment and the coming of Mashiach. So this part of the Torah is very, very, is very, was hidden away, was a precious stone, not allowed to be revealed, and not, but you know the famous story, right? When the Maggid, the student of the Alter Rebbe, of the Baal Shem Tov, started writing down and transmitting in written form this the Chassidus, which is the part of the Panemius Torah, the inner part of Torah. So one day, somebody found one of these pieces of paper lying in the mud in the street, and he said, the angels are not allowed to even know about this stuff, and here it's in the mud in the streets. And an accusation was made against the Maggid, which was very serious, and he could have died from it. And he asked the students to find a defense for him, and the Alter Rebbe came up with this following story. He said, once there was a boy, you know the story, there was a boy who was a king's son who was very sick, and his they called all the different doctors, and nobody was able to heal him, and finally somebody suggested a Jewish doctor. So the king didn't want to bring a Jewish doctor, but he was forced to do it. And the Jewish doctor came and said, there's only one cure for this boy at this point. He's really sick. He can't even open his mouth anymore. He's so sick. What has to happen is they have to take the stone, which is the gemstone of the king's crown, and grind it up, which was destroy the stone forever, and destroy the crown too, for that matter, and then pour it into water, and then try and get some few drops into his down his throat. And they did that, and they just forced some up behind his lips because it was very hard to pry open his mouth, and most of it spilled on the ground. But it was able to revive the son. The king said, "Do it, do it." Are you recording? And that's the analogy that the Alter Rebbe gave. He said that God sees that the Jewish people are in a very severe sick situation, and He's willing to take the gemstone of the crown, grind it up, and to be able to save the prince. Because otherwise the king says, my kingdom's not worth anything if I don't have a son. So, and the same thing God says, that without the Jewish people, I can't continue, so I have to release these precious gems. Anyway, that's not the story I wanted to tell, although good story. The story I wanted to tell about Shimon Bar Yochai, to sort of give you an idea of who he was and what he was like. So there's a famous medrash that talks about him. And the story goes as follows. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai lived in the northern part of Israel, up in the Galil. At one point, he was living in the city of Sidon. And a man and a woman came to him, and they had been married for 10 years, very happily, but they had one big problem. And the problem was that they had no children. So they heard that there is a law that says that after 10 years, if a man and a woman don't have a child, there's something wrong in the compatibility between the two of them, and they are permitted, not ordered, but permitted, to divorce at that point in time and to find new partners so that they should at least have some children. So they came to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and they asked his permission to be able to divorce. And he says, I will give you that permission, but I have one condition that you have to do. And that is, just like when you got married, you had a big wedding celebration. I want you to, when you're getting divorced, also to have a big celebration. And they listened to him. Although it sounds very strange. I mean, people do not usually have a big party and invite a lot of friends and have a meal and everything else when they're getting a divorce. Parenthetically, I was listening to this from Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson. He said that there was some guy in Crown Heights who was getting divorced, and he went to the Rav, and he came in his kapata, like it was someday, it was that celebration that he was finally able to get rid of this wife of his. And the Rav told him, you go back, you put on tattered clothes because you are not allowed to celebrate this day. So it's not considered a celebration. In fact, many have the custom, the rabbis even have the custom of fasting that day, that they issue a divorce decree because it's considered like a korban. So
destruction.
Yeah. So okay, so this is sort of an odd request from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but they went home. They had lots of friends. They had lots of money. They had a big party. And in this big party, tell me if you've heard the story before, but anyway, they had this big party. And in this big party, the woman decided that she was going to make sure her husband drank an awful lot. So she made sure he drank a lot, and he got very drunk, and he passed out or whatever. And then he came back to a little bit, and he told his wife, he says, since we're going to, this is our last day together. He says, I want you to look around the house. I'm very rich, as you know, and you can take whatever you want. Take one thing that you really want, and you can take it home to your father's house.
Oh, I heard this story.
So you heard the story. Yes.
But I like it. It's cute.
It's a good story. Okay. So and he passes out again. And she tells the servants, he says, put him on his bed, pick him up, and take him with me. I'm going back to my father's house. So they take him, and he goes back, and and around midnight, he wakes up in his father-in-law and mother-in-law's house.
Yeah.
He goes to his wife. He sees his wife, and he says, what am I doing? Where am I? And she says, you're in my father's house. And he says, what am I doing here? She says, you told me to do this. And he says, I told you? He's like, trying to get his bearings. And she says, yes. He said, if I have one thing that I want to take that I really want to have with me, I should choose that and take it to my father's house. So I chose you because you're the most precious thing that I could think of.
That's so nice.
So it's not the end of the story. When they heard right after that, they go running back to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and say, now what are we supposed to do? And he says, now I'm going to give you my blessing that you should have children. And therefore, and sure enough, they did have children. So
that's nice.
That's the story, and it's a great story. It's a very fun story, and it's a very romantic story. But I'm going to tell you more the deeper side of the romantic part of it. And the question is, if Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was going to give him the blessing for children, he should have done it right away. Why this whole story with going home and the party and the divorce and everything else, and then taking them back? What's the logic involved in that? And what's the logic involved in having a party for a divorce? So there is a mimer from the Alter Rebbe who explains this idea. And it's very beautiful, and it's very meaningful, and it's very much about this idea of how we need our second chances too. And the answer is that sometimes we reach a point in our life where we feel blocked, and we're not getting to where we need to be in our life. And just like this couple, is that we need to have children, and we're blocked, and we're not having it, and that's the point of the marriage. And if we don't have children, what's the point of being married anymore? And people look at it that way. And this is the problem that we have. We sometimes look for very good reasons and for very holy reasons, for the things that we very much need. And we think that and they're right. And your friends will tell you you're right. And everybody else will agree with you that you're right. And that, this is a situation that, you have to address and you have to fix, and it can't keep going the way it has been going. And they're right. But Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said there's a deeper story going on here. And sometimes you have to break the old patterns in order to reach a new level in yourself. And that is what he was seeing. Was he said, you know what? You have to have a transformation. You have to go back and remarry on a whole new level. The marriage was good, and then you had a sweet marriage, and it was very loving, and everything was going right. But you weren't getting to the core of the relationship. And therefore, it was all making sense and it all worked nicely. But it really, you needed to kick it into a completely new level. And that's what he was telling them to do. And when when he overcome that barrier, all of a sudden you're able to reformulate the whole idea and see what the real core of the marriage is. What am I talking about? Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Maybe I don't even know what I'm talking about. So let me tell a story along this lines that really dovetails with that. So this is a more recent story. Rabbi YY once saw one of the secretaries of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he said, "Tell me a story that from your experience of dealing with all the people that came to the Rebbe." This was Rabbi Klein. So he told the following story. He said, "One time a couple came to me from Israel. What was the story with them? Similar story. Nice couple. He was a Kohen. She was married to him. Had nice marriage, 10 years." Very religious, very, very, very religious, not Hasidic, but a very religious family. And after 10 years, they didn't have any children. And there was a lot of pressure from the family and the wife. Everybody wanted to have children. They wanted the family. So he went to one of his rabbis. And this rabbi said, it's in the Tanakh about Avraham, he was going to divorce Yitzchak. He was going to divorce Rivka after 10 years. You can divorce your wife after 10 years. And have another and get married and marry somebody else to have children. So they actually went ahead and did exactly that. And they had a formal divorce. And then a few months later, the wife, ex-wife, discovered she was pregnant. Now, normally this would not be a problem because you just marry again and and the family gets back together and is everly happy after. But the problem was he was a Kohen. And Kohanim are not allowed to marry divorcees. Even your own divorcee, you're not allowed to marry. So that's a problem. Not a problem. He went from rabbi to rabbi to rabbi in Israel, and nobody could come up with any solution to this because everybody knows that halacha, and it's a terrible, tragic thing, but there's no wiggle room in this situation. The one person finally suggested, for these kind of problems, you don't need somebody who's a halachic expert. You need somebody who's a soul expert. You go to the Lubavitcher Rebbe in New York. So the wife heard this and said, great. And the wife's family said this and said, great. And the husband said, no way. We don't talk to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. We don't have anything to do with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. We don't deal with miracle workers or Hasidim or tzaddikim or anything like that. So he was very adamant, but the family was very pressing. And they said, it's not going to cost you anything. Go. We're going to pay for it. So they came. They came to New York. And he goes in to see the Rebbe. And he tells him the story. And the Rebbe tells him, so now you're in America, your mother is here, right? Yes. So you should go talk to your mother about this problem. And that was the end of the meeting. The guy comes out and he says, I knew it was a stupid idea talking to the Rebbe. The greatest rabbis in Israel couldn't solve the problem. My mother is borderline, out in the next world already. She's hardly aware. I'm going to bother her with all these troubles about me. And just, she's an old lady and she's not always lucid. And what is she going to be able to help? But the wife, again, presses, as the Rebbe said to do it. So he goes to talk to his mother and he tells the story. The mother happened to be it was one of her better days. And she looks at her son and she says, if the Lubavitcher Rebbe knows this, then the secret is out of the bag. And I guess I have to tell you. So she tells him, she says, actually, you are not our biological child. We adopted you. But my father, your father, my husband, was a Kohen. He's no longer alive. And we made a promise and a pact that we would never tell you that you were not a Kohen because we didn't want anybody in the school to know that you weren't our child. So we wanted you always to feel like our child. So we always pretended like you were our son and you were a Kohen. And so I have to tell you now that you actually, technically, you are not a Cohen, and therefore you're allowed to marry your ex-wife. And they did. And they remarried.
Did you tell us this story already too?
I did tell you the story.
It's okay. No, it's not. It's nice to hear nice stories.
It's nice to hear the good story.
Yeah. Sorry.
Why am I saying this? Because
Oh, second chances.
we put ourselves in a certain paradigm and we see a little narrow piece of the world. Do we know what our soul was before it came in the world, or what it's supposed to do in this world, or all the whole big picture? A Rebbe sees the bigger picture, and he saw what was the answer here in the story, where nobody else could see logically where it was. This is the thing that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was trying to untap. That man saw marriage is about children. And as long as he viewed it as a business transaction, as getting something here, and me doing this, and you doing this, and doing the right things, and all good things. But as long as you didn't get to that core, you were missing it. As soon as she said, I don't care about anything else. Only what about you? I only care about the relationship with you. It's only you I want. Children, no children, family, no family, whatever else, it's you. That is very powerful. When somebody invests in you and is happy to see you and gets excited when you're in the room, and that is the whole thing about them. And it's not about anything, about any situation or about what we're doing together or anything else. That is very empowering, and you can get through anything in life with that. That is what a relationship is about. That is what he was trying to teach them. And when they reached that level that they said, you know what? It's the relationship is everything. It's not anything else. Then all of a sudden they became vessels for God to pour in bigger blessings and for them to have children. Now, this is also the relationship. What I tell you, this is not only about marriage. It's a relationship with God and about our relationship with our life and everything else. Oftentimes we have a certain limited mindset about how things are supposed to work out, and we're upset and we're worried and we're anxious and we're and going crazy because things are not the way we think it's supposed to be. And what life is about is being in love with life as it is. There was a person once who was asked, are you in love with God? And he says, I'm in love with life every single day. That's what being in love with God is about. God is life. Life is existence is God. God is existence. Everything about what is happening to me today is part of that experience. And if I can actually reach that level, which is not an easy thing to do, maybe you have to work at it every single day. But if you can be on that level saying, whatever is going on, this is really a great opportunity. I don't know. Things are falling apart left and right. And, it looks crazy. And I think it's, and most people would agree. Maybe they would really say what's happening is a disaster. But on a certain deep level, we can say, I want to just have the relationship. Just like that woman said, I just want the relationship with the husband. I don't care about anything else. Then all of a sudden you lift yourself up to a higher place. And that is the lesson, I believe, one of the big lessons and opportunities for Lag BaOmer and that energy that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai released about the Pnimis Torah, the inner part of Torah. It's all nice to think about what I'm doing is going to get me a nice place in Gan Eden, and it's all going to get me a lot of credits, and it's all going to get me a lot of respect and all these other kinds of things. That's not why I'm a Jew. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to get a transaction, a business reward for the kind of work that I put in. I put in so much, I get so much paid back. I'm not looking for the payback. I just care about the relationship with God, with the existence, with living, with being His servant in this world. And when I connect on that level, then I'm connecting to the inner, the Pneumius of the world. And that is the light and the energy that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai released. And that's why we have all those bonfires on Lag BaOmer, is that it really makes the whole world much lighter and much more pleasant and much more illuminated. There's an interesting thing that no place in Israel is visited as much as Meron and the Kever of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, except for the Kosel. So all Jews somehow very deeply relate to this idea that somehow this is really a very special part of of our relationship with God, and it's worth celebrating Lag BaOmer. Thank you. I hope you have a very good Lag BaOmer. We'll talk a little bit more about Lag BaOmer next week. Good night now.
Can I just tell you
On
something?
Pesach Sheni last week, I mentioned. Go
Oh, you
listen to
mentioned
last
this
week's
week.
class.
Okay,
Yep.
fine.
Thank you.
Right, you said it was
Thank you.
Monday.
Last
So
week.
you made it sound like relationships are so wonderful with a spouse, and I you already know the answer to whatever what I'm getting at, because
He's there. He's
it's
there.
very, very hard to manage without one.
He's
when
there.
you what?
He's there.
Well, I missed where
40
is it?
30 days before you were born and 30 days before you were born, the bell went off.
40 days.
40 days before this bell went off in Shemayim saying, that this guy is designated for Surrey Hauser. He's there. I don't know where he is physically. It's like Sarah Lay used to say, he's probably out surfing on the surfboards in California, which
That's what she said. Come on.
Yeah, and that's what he was doing too.
That's what her husband.
Come on. How
That's
did
what
I
she was
never hear
doing.
that one?
Yeah. I remember that story very well. And
How did I not hear that story?
that was what was happening. So a part of her soul knew that was what was going on. So yeah, he's there. He's there. And, I think it's partly is when we relate to everything in life that way, we make ourselves vessels so that we actually are capable of receiving it. And of course, I give you brachas that, whatever blockage, that's what a bracha is supposed to break through that blockage and be able so that you'll actually.
And it's not that I wanted to keep.
Okay. Now, Shlomi Shudas, it's your turn to talk.
Yes.
Somebody else had any questions? No?
No,
No.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I love the stories, even though you said them already. They're nice to hear every time. Really?
Yeah, those are beautiful stories.
The only it's just interesting that they all happen to stop dying on one day, but I won't get into the technicalities of it.
And also that he tells it very nicely, Baruch Hashem. So,
But he said Lag BaOmer was the day that they all stopped dying. It's kind of like,
yeah.
like whatever. I wonder what illness that they had. They had some type of plague, right?
Yes.
That they were all
Yeah.
dying from.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. It's more realistic now to us now that we had COVID, no?
Right.
Yeah.
Are you found your other glasses?
No, these are my other glasses I threw out of the car and I can't find them.
Oh,
And-
I know the ones you're talking about with all the different colors, right?
No,
Really
no, I have
colorful.
those. I have those. Those I have.
It's not really my job to worry about your glasses. I should just let you talk. Sorry.
Okay, good. Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Okay. Hi.
Hi,
So,
Sean.
did you want to say something?
Oh, no, I just said hello.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So, okay. So, Haskell Shimon told me the name of the class was Second Chances. So I made a title about second chances and I researched second chances and I have a story and I have
Oh,
to say about second chances. Second chances really goes along with next Monday, which is Pesach Sheni. But anyway, before I do that, I want to start out with the things I always say, which is number one, we're in an extraordinary time. Lubavitcher Rebbe told us, and the Rebbe was never wrong about any public pronouncement that he made. He said that we're in the unfolding of the redemption, and this and the second point is our souls were handpicked to be here at this time in human history. This is an incredibly important time because we each have an important role to play. Number three, we were given all the tools we need to navigate this time. We were given the Torah, which is our guidebook, and we were in our incredible guidebook, and we were given the mitzvahs, which are our power tools. There's nothing that can transform a human being more than a mitzvah. They bring out the true you. I remember when I was first becoming frum in Key West, I would stand on my wraparound porch that overlooked the Atlantic Ocean, and I would sing, "You make me feel like a natural woman." I felt totally transformed by Torah, and I was. And finally, what we're doing tonight, learning about the redemption, is the fastest way, is the best way to speed it up. That's what the Rebbe told us. So anyway, next Monday will be all day. So it's good to do it now because we don't want to miss next Monday. Next Monday is going to be Pesach Sheni. It's actually my father's, Alav Hashalom, his birthday. And Pesach Sheni says it's never too late. It's just never too late and never too late to capture that which you want to capture in life. And so I looked up online. I looked up some. Okay. Before I go there, I have to say, because I'm going to forget to say it later, I have to say that this date in human history, Zion ER, is in Chabad history. At this time of year in 1991, this time of year in 1991, the Rebbe was the Hasidim and the Rebbe were very open about. They were very open about declaring the Rebbe as Mashiach, and it was an extraordinary time. So what happened since then? What happened since then? How come we entered into this era when things are not as clear as it was then? And as we said last week, whatever, the Rebbe told us that we are that Mashiach has already been appointed, and the Rebbe told us that 770 is his 770 is the in Hebrew. Every letter has a numerical value, and Beis Mashiach, the home of Mashiach, is the numerical value equals 770. And he said Mashiach's name is Menachem. He said all these different things. And so how can we understand this intervening time if Mashiach, the Rebbe told us Mashiach has already been appointed. So what is with all this intervening time? And we mentioned last week that when Miriam gave her incredible prophecy in Egypt that her mother was going to give birth to the Redeemer and he was going to take the Jews out of Egypt, it took 80 years before Moshe was in Egypt. He had to flee Egypt. He was out of Egypt for an extremely long time. And then he came back, and when he was 80 years old, and he redeemed the Jewish people. But she had her prophecy, even though her prophecy was 80 years earlier, it was a true prophecy. And there are predictions about Mashiach that he will be there, and then he will be concealed, and then he will be there again. So anyway, we're anxious for the fulfillment of that. So anyway, to go back to the idea of second chances, there's a lot of people in life who felt like failures and were pronounced failures and went on to become astounding successes in life. There was, I guess there's a woman, J.K. Rowling. Sorry, I never read the series, but she wrote her first book called Harry Potter, and whatever, her first book of Harry Potter, and it was rejected by one publisher, rejected. And we know what happened with her, that how wildly successful it became. Walt Disney, when he was a young man, he was fired from a newspaper. Why? They said he lacked creativity. The founder of Disney.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Michael Jordan, one of the most legendary basketball players of all time, was dropped from his high school basketball team as not good enough. And the most classic example of all this is Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison, he was in school for less than a year when his teacher told his mother, it doesn't pay to put this kid in school. He is incredibly dumb. Back then they used words like that. He is never going to amount to anything. You just take him out of school. It just doesn't make sense. His mother was not stymied by such a statement. She said, fine, I'll educate him myself. She took him home, and he was allowed to learn at his own pace. And he was allowed to learn things that interested him. And lo and behold, he became focused and he became productive. And he invented more than 3,000 things, including the electric light bulb, motion pictures. He he produced a major invention.
Oh, it smells like something's burning.
He produced a major invention every 6 months, and he's just he became he became really one of the most prolific geniuses of our time. And he was told that he would never succeed, and his parents were told he would never succeed in anything. So anyway, so 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 all these people had a fresh start in life, and they were able to get a second chance in life. They were able to get a fresh start in life. But sometimes a fresh start in life is much, much simpler. It's not even that. Sometimes you can get a fresh start any time of any day by simply a change of attitude in a flash. So it reminds me, there was a story. There's not a story. I have a good friend, and I won't mention her name, but she and I were friends for many years when we were single, and she was getting older, and thank God, after many, after decades of being single, 3 decades of being single, she found somebody that she loved. She found somebody she liked very, very much and loved, and married him. But she was she was always very not torn. She was ripped up by the fact that she didn't have children. And after marriage, she still didn't have children. And, if she was at work and everybody was talking about their babies or something like that, she was just like, she would go into a big black funk, black funk, and she couldn't drop it. She couldn't drop this thing. And she wrote me an email one time that she was in her office and she was in deep, deep, deep pain. And all of a sudden, a voice inside her cried out, "Don't miss the day. The day is passing. What are you doing? Don't miss the day. There's a day to be lived." And it snapped her out of it. And why? And so she got a second chance from her own soul. Her own soul was scolding her. Listen, there's a day to be lived. Go live it. And I thought of that story today because this morning I had multiple vexing problems, really vexing problems that were making me very, 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 very upside down, and very upside down. And then all of a sudden, like her, a voice inside me said, "Wait a minute, I can walk, I can think, I can talk. Let me grab this. Let me do the good that I'm supposed to be doing. What am I worrying about all that stuff? Okay, have to take practical action. But meantime, I have this wonderful day ahead of me. Let me grab it. Let me do what I have to do with it." So anyway, that's how to get a second chance on life without even any great thunderclap, any great change from above. Just a change from us can produce a tremendous second chance. So anyway, we should all grab every day and next Monday, starting next Sunday night in particular, and ask Hashem for a second chance and live life for all it's worth. So I'm going to end here.
Oh, Shlomo,
Yes.
I thought, like, I know in the past, like the Chabad of Brookline, they would have like a Pesach Sheni Seder. Do you have a Seder, or you don't have to have like a Seder?
There's no such thing as, I never heard of a Pesach Sheni Seder because there's no Seder associated with it.
Well, I think they've had it where you drink like the 4 cups of wine and you have the matzah. They did some kind of thing like that.
I think you're thinking of the Mashiach Suda at the end of.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Okay.
Pesach Sheni, it's a thing to eat matzah.
Okay.
And, but it's not like the Mashiach Suda at the end of Pesach.
Okay, maybe that's I got it confused.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So wait, we just didn't say any brachas on that day. We just speak to Hashem and
say Hamotzi and make
okay.
Say Hamotzi and talk to Hashem about getting a second chance on whatever it is you want a second chance on.
Okay, thank you.
Whatever several things you want a second chance on. I don't want a second chance on one thing. I want a second chance on a lot of things.
And is there like we always follow the Haggadah? Is there something we read in the Siddur, or it's just Is it just a Hasidic custom or is it for a regular?
Oh, it's more than Hasidic. It's more than
Okay.
Hasidic. It's Judaism wide,
Okay.
and it's a thing to eat matzah, make a bracha, bench afterwards, and
Okay.
to mark the day.
All right. All right. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
You're
Nice
wel-
to see you.
if you need matzah, you can always come to us. We have a lot left.
All right. I'll keep that in mind.
Okay.
Thanks, Walter. It's
You
nice
be
to
well.
see
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Be well. Thank you. Good night.